Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber, joined here on set by attorney Terri Austin. We're going to break down 3 live trials we're going to be in today. Big day here on the network, a lot to break down, so let's get started right now. All right, that was Loretta Shaw. She's an acquaintance of Jennifer Rosenbaum. We've seen this a lot so far, where they keep calling these witnesses who said they haven't seen anything out of the ordinary. They saw good parents. They didn't see any injuries on these young girls, no abuse. A lot of witnesses called by the defense. Is this helping them?
I think it's going to help a little bit. You know, the only thing you can really show when there's the death of a child is that the foster parent was doing the best they can. They fed them, they looked healthy, the house was not unruly. So I think having these witnesses say these were good people is the best they can do.
You know, I gave this a lot of thought yesterday. I'm like, okay, you have a lot of witnesses who said they didn't see anything out of the ordinary, but it's different from the great-grandmother who testified and said that Millie told her there was abuse and really significant things going on. And I always thought, well, maybe a lot of these strangers don't know what's going on. How many people in your life do you not tell the deepest, darkest things about what's going on? Or maybe they're only there for sporadic moments, but other people really know. So how much, I mean, they called a mailman yesterday who really, you know, an objective witness, but again,
yeah, the jury's going to have to look at how well these witnesses know the defendants and how much insight they have into what's going on in the home. The mailman's not going to know much.
You said this is going to help their case a little bit. How would it help? Would it help establish? I mean, remember, they're both charged with, you know, cruelty to children charges. We're looking at assault and battery. We're looking at murder charges. Is it going to negate at least one of them? I mean, how would it help? Again, it's a tough question because one leads into the other.
I think the story that the defense is trying to show is these are 2 upstanding citizens in the community. They have good jobs. They have, you know, some people in the community who know them. And I think they're just trying to weave a story that these aren't the type of people who would abuse their children.
Definitely not the type of people, because remember, they were put into these kids were put into the foster care system given to them for a reason. Rosenbaum seemed like great people to raise 2 children. But now where are we? They're on trial for murder, and that's a different story. A new witness just took the stand. I think we can jump back live. Again, the defense is continuing to put on their case. Let's go. Okay, so this is Jennifer's sister. They met later in life. She's talking about seeing these girls, and she describes an incident where they get injured. Now, this isn't the injury that would necessarily cause the injury to Layla, because she's talking about something that happened a few months before. But we are getting a sense here of some pretty traumatic accidents. Your thoughts?
I think that this is a great defense witness because she's establishing someone close to the defendant who has seen the children in her care. And she's establishing the fact that these other injuries could have been caused by, like she said, falling off of this ladder. So she's making it seem like she's a good mom. The sister is making it seem like Jennifer's a good mom and she's taking care of the children. She's watching the children, and sometimes children have accidents.
How would the prosecution fight against these witnesses called by the defense? Is it to say, hey, listen, there's a gray area. We're not saying they abuse them every day, 24/7. They might have taken care of that at times, but there were these moments of abuse, and that's all you need?
That's right. I think the prosecution is going to say exactly that, Jesse. The fact that this sister wasn't around 24/7. She has no idea what happened behind closed doors.
So that ladder incident, which was pretty traumatic, I think we're getting a better understanding of this. Let's go live and we'll see what that picture has to show. Okay, so this is Detective Donald Anwara, again, another defense witness. I'm curious, Terri, are we eventually going to see those medical experts? Those are the people I think we're all waiting to see. People who can come forward and say, yes, trying to save a young girl who was choking on a piece of chicken could result in these injuries.
If I'm the jury, I am definitely, bless you, waiting for the medical evidence, because that's going to show what happened on the day that Layla died. These witnesses are just basically saying, you know, they interviewed the prior foster parents. I don't think it's going to add much value.
If you sit in the Rosenbaum seat, right, you have these 2 girls. One of them died, 2 years old. One of them has a ton of injuries on her body, and so did Layla as well. Now, if their position is these girls were always getting into accidents, they bruised, some of it was occurred by gymnastics, and you have a situation where no one saw abuse. There's no eyewitness to the abuse except for Millie, who mentioned something. Do they have a case at trying to say, what did the prosecution really prove? They showed injuries. They say that it's not consistent and it can't just happen the way it's described, but without that eyewitness, without some other evidence, is there enough?
I think you're right, Jesse. This is like 50-50 right now. It looks like these were good parents. They weren't abusive. And on the other hand, the children had all of these injuries.
Right.
So where did they come from?
That's the whole point. Where did they come from? Let's go back live. Okay, some explosive testimony right there. Also came up what Millie has been saying throughout this case, not just what she testified to on the stand, but what she told people before this trial. Your thoughts on Millie's role in this trial and how it'll affect the decision for the Rosenbaums?
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things this witness was saying is the fact that Millie's not going to admit much when she's in the care of someone who might have been abusing her. It's only when she feels comfortable in the care of someone else, like the Lamberts, she'll start saying what really happened.
And her great-grandmother,
And
Peggy
her
Banks. That's the same kind of thing what we talked about before. It's like you have all these witnesses coming forward for the defense, the mailman, but they're not going to. It's unlikely that the mailman, a complete stranger, would know these intimate details.
That's right. I think the more people they have that are close to the Rosenbaums, the better, because these witnesses who don't have much information won't shed light for the jury.
Well, defense is continuing on with their case, and they're putting on a lot of witnesses. Strong case from both sides so far. Interesting one to follow. We're also live in the Amato trial and the Nicole Notchman trial. A lot covering here on the network. We'll take a break. We'll be right back right after this. Okay, we have a witness here who is being brought to try to establish that Millie, key witness in this case, surviving victim, alleged surviving victim, might not be so credible. Sensitive topic for the defense and the court. How are they doing at trying to show that?
I think the defense is doing a great job. This therapist saw Millie repeatedly, many times, and knew her very well, and is testifying that there were times Millie made things up. And the foster parent also was a little bit concerned that Millie sometimes exaggerated. So I think the defense is doing a nice job here.
And not to cast, any blame on Millie, because this could be just a characteristic of young children. As she said, it's common certain things. They make up, they exaggerate, and I guess that's the fear of placing such an important case in the testimony of such a young girl.
Yes, that's right. I actually was very surprised when the witness was put on this stand. She's such a young child, and it's hard for a jury to determine whether or not Millie's telling the truth.
But can't this backfire? I mean, a jury could be sitting there and be like, wow, you're really trying to say that this little girl is lying? This little girl who has bruises all over her, her sister died, you have the audacity to question her. Couldn't it backfire?
That's a great point, Jesse. And yes, I think the prosecution should be a little bit worried that it could backfire on them.
Now we're seeing sort of now the medical testimony beginning in a way. If you were cross-examining this witness for the state, if you're now the state, what would you cross-examine her about?
I think I would try to establish that, Millie might have been telling the truth, and Millie has no reason to lie, and that, there's no definitive way to prove that the child is lying.
There's certain things that were said that are outrageous, and I hope are lies, because to think about the truth of it, you'd fall down. I mean, the idea of being forced to eat your own vomit, is that true, or is that an exaggeration, you think?
Yeah, well, let's put it like this. I hope it's an exaggeration, because it's a horrible situation if it's true.
Is the defense doing a good job at raising reasonable doubt so far in this point in the case, where they've cross-examined witnesses, almost every witness, pretty thoroughly and effectively, trying to now put on their case? Are they raising a strong case of reasonable doubt?
They are. They really are, because the prosecution has to show that this was beyond a reasonable doubt to find that the defendants are guilty. Here, the defense is raising a lot of doubt as to whether or not Millie's telling the truth,
Right.
how these injuries occurred. So I think the defense is doing a good job in that regard.
Equal for both of them, or is it a stronger case still for Jennifer versus Joseph? We have about 20 seconds.
I go back and forth. Right now, Jennifer is the one, if found guilty, would be the one who's got more weight here.
It wouldn't be a situation where she's found not guilty and he's found guilty.
They're going to both be found guilty, or they'll both be found not guilty.
Okay, so we have a lot of options, a lot to consider here. Interesting day so far. Remember, this is just one of 3 live trials we're in right now. We're going to break down everything when we get back. A lot happening here on this Thursday on Law and Crime. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.